And we are back once again with another video, so make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as we talk about Missouri football in this upcoming 2023 football season. Also, make sure that you like this video if you enjoy it. Comment all your thoughts and opinions down below. Also, make sure you check out the website and the Patreon page if you'd like to support the channel, either financially or by checking out the website. Also, make sure that you check out Sorgi Stories. They have put out their first ever book. The link to order it will be in the description. If you aren't able to order it, share it with your friends and family. So let's get started with today's video as we talk about the Missouri football Tigers. So this schedule obviously is a very interesting one. You have two I wouldn't say interesting, but two very tough non-conference games and two easier non-conference games, the two tough ones being Kansas State and Memphis, and then the two easier ones being South Dakota and Middle Tennessee. So South Dakota, they have not been particularly fantastic these past couple of years in the Missouri Valley. They've struggled a little bit, so it should be an easy win for an FBS opponent in Missouri. Then you have Middle Tennessee coming to town. Once again, I do think that this is a win. I don't think that you have that many issues. I think that this should be a pretty easy win here. Missouri, and led by their quarterback in Brady Cook and their fourth-year head coach in Eli Drinkowitz. I think that it's a big year for Drinkowitz if he wants any chance at securing a second chance with this program, because the past couple of years have been a little bit disappointing for a lot of Missouri fans with the 5-5 finish, a 6-7 finish, and another 6-7 finish. Then you have a Kansas State team coming to town. Kansas State, obviously, they won the Big 12 last year, beating TCU. And I think that you are looking at a pretty big matchup here if you are Kansas State. Or if you're Missouri, I'm sorry. But I think at the end of the day, Will Howard comes back with Kansas State. And though they do lose Deuce Vaughn, when you look at Missouri, you bring back a lot of your pieces, including Brady Cook, like I talked about, and 8 defensive starters, as well as your top running back in Cody Schrader. And when it really comes down to it at the end of this game, I think that Kansas State is just the better team. They played really, really well last year, and I think that you're looking at a team that just simply does not have the ability to get after the quarterback. You lost your top 2 sack leaders, and I think that if you're going to have a chance in this season, you do have to win this kind of border war type of game against Kansas State. But I think when it comes down to it, I trust Will Howard a lot more, and I think Kansas State as a program is just in a better position. And I do think that it is going to be a struggle of a game for both teams. And yes, it is a home game for Missouri, but that's kind of it. I don't think Missouri is a good enough team to beat them. Then you have a neutral site game against Memphis. This game is being played in St. Louis. So definitely much more of a home field advantage for the Tigers that are for Missouri Tigers than it is for the Memphis Tigers. But when it comes down to it with this game, I think that Missouri does get the win. I think that Memphis, they have certain pieces around them that I think help to develop a good a solid team, but I think the past few years have really hurt them going into this season because, well, with all that's gone on and stuff like that, like obviously it is very disappointing that they didn't get to move up in the world and join the Big 12, because it was really thought that they were going to be that team that joined, but instead they were left behind. Well, since Cincinnati, UCF, and SMU stayed. Houston left, not SMU. But Memphis, they do bring back Seth Henne, and that is definitely an important piece. But I think at the end of the day, I don't see anything with Memphis here particularly that they are going to be able to beat the Missouri Tigers in this matchup of Tigers. Then you have Vanderbilt. You start off your SEC play with what could be considered an easy opponent. Vanderbilt by no means is really a team that you think would be able to compete with Missouri. But here's the thing. Vanderbilt brings back their quarterback. So does Missouri. So where's the difference? You both have returning head coaches. Clark Lee, a little bit more of a he's only in his third year now at Vanderbilt. So this is a big game here for Vanderbilt and a big game for Missouri, and this could really turn the season around. Missouri has LSU the week after, and obviously they've had some success against LSU in recent years. They beat LSU a couple of years ago in 2020, and I don't believe, I'm double checking, they have not played since 2020, but Missouri did win that game. So that was one of the biggest wins in the Eli Drinkowitz era, was beating number 17 LSU. That was a pretty big win, though it didn't end up being as big of a win as most people thought, because obviously that was a bad LSU team. But when it comes down to it, with Vanderbilt, I think at the end of the day, I think Vanderbilt just has a team that is just better rounded than Missouri, and I just simply think that Vanderbilt showed a lot of promise last year, and I get it. Missouri beat Vanderbilt last year, but Missouri beat Vanderbilt by 3 points at home last year. I think that this changes. I think that Vanderbilt does get the win, and I think it makes it a very interesting spot, because if Eli Drinkowitz loses to Vanderbilt, puts you in a very tough spot. You have a couple of tough games coming up. You have LSU, and then at Kentucky, and then South Carolina. And those last 4 games are just absolutely brutal. Now you have LSU, like I said. I don't think you beat LSU. I will appreciate the fact that Missouri has played well against ranked teams for the most part, other than a pounding by Tennessee last year. You beat a number 25 South Carolina team. You almost upset Georgia last year. That would have been fun to see. And then you did beat LSU that year previously. It hasn't been terrible against ranked teams. Sometimes it's been worse than others, but definitely a situation where Missouri has had some success against ranked opponents. But when it comes down to it, I think that LSU, it's going to be a loss. I think that Jalen Daniels and the Tigers just have too much firepower, and something that Missouri is not going to be able to overcome when it comes down to it. Then you have a road game against Kentucky. And here's the thing. When it comes to Kentucky, I think that they are a solid program. They're not flashy particularly. Obviously, you had Devin Leary last year and all the buzz around him and stuff like that, but it kind of fell a little bit flat. So you're definitely not looking at the biggest, flashiest team around. You bring in the transfer quarterback from NC State in Devin Leary, but when it comes down to this game particularly, I'm not a big fan of Kentucky. I do think Missouri kind of gets a win here. I think they kind of escape with a little bit of a dub here, shockingly. But I do think that they do get a W. I think that I do think Brady Cook, if the big thing, a lot of Missouri's season, I really feel like hinges on Brady Cook and his ability to improve as a quarterback. He only had 14 touchdowns last year. He had about a 65% completion percentage. That's fine. You don't need to particularly improve on that. Like, sure, it'd be nice if it could be 68, 69, 70%. But as long as you keep it in that range and you get some more touchdowns and lower the interceptions, maybe from 7 to 4 or 5, that would be a really impressive season. Then you have a home game against the Gamecocks. I think you do win this game here. I think that the Gamecocks are bound to trip up once or twice on their schedule, and I think that this is one of the places that they tripped up last season. They also tripped up against Missouri. Having a road loss against them, I think that it is definitely a easy win, or not an easy win, but definitely a game where it's a home game, and South Carolina has struggled against Missouri, losing the last 5 contests that our last 4 contests against Eli Drinkowitz. He has a good thing going against South Carolina. I think that kind of continues. Then you have a road game against Georgia after a bye week. This is a loss. I think if this game was at home, maybe I would consider it. But with it being a home game for Georgia, I know Georgia. I don't see it. I know you played them close last year, but I think overall you got a tough situation. I just don't see it being a win here. Then you have Tennessee coming to town, and Tennessee has really beaten the crap out of Missouri the past 2 years, with those scores being 62-24 and 66-24. It is definitely, and the previous year was 35-12. So it's just, it has not been a good time against Tennessee. And I think that this is another loss. I think that Tennessee, they just own this series. That's just simply what it is. Then you have a home game against the Florida Gators. This is a 50-50 matchup, in my opinion, but I do kind of like Billy Napier and where he's heading with this program. And if this game was early on in the year, I'd probably give it to Missouri. But with this game being later on in the year, I think that Napier does have this program kind of heading in somewhat of a right direction, and I think that he was a good coach at Louisiana. So I am going to give him a win there. Then you have Arkansas for the final game of the season, another border matchup. A lot of border matchups here, Kentucky and Kansas State, Arkansas. But when it comes down to it with this Arkansas team, you beat Arkansas last year. That, I'll be honest, it shocked me. And it's been a lot of good matchups recently. In the Eli Drinkwitz, Sam Pittman era, you had a really close matchup win over Arkansas 50-48. Then you lost 34-17, and then you beat them 29-17. I think with this matchup being at Arkansas this year, I do think that you lose once again, ending the season on an unfortunate and disappointing 4-game losing streak. I think that Missouri finishes with a 5-7 record. I think that is going to be a little bit of a disappointing season here for Drinkwitz. And to be honest, it may be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I do think that is a possibility that he does lose his job after this season. So not exactly the happiest of predictions, but let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Otherwise, hit 2 videos down below. One will be a playlist or podcast of all of my college football predictions. So hit that down below and hit the subscribe button up here. And as always, have a great day.